So then here's the TV, the January 13th, the next night. Because I'm just, at this point, I'm just doing the matches that I was given. And as I've mentioned before, they would give me either the matches with the young guys that they wanted to elevate or the main event guys that they wanted me to referee and try to. Okay, what don't you like about it? What don't you like about it? Okay, let's figure out another way to weasel out of that type of thing. I had success with that, but nevertheless. So the following day, I had Petey Williams and Eric Young versus Booker T and Scott Steiner. And Shane Sewell was the referee, Glamour Boy Shane from Puerto Rico. Blonde man, very, very nice and polite, good work. And they were going to do an angle with Booker and Shane, whatever the fuck. But can you imagine how easy it was to get Booker T and Scott Steiner sat down with Petey Williams and Eric Young in January of 2009? Would you like to hear this?
Let's hear this.
This was bloody rotten all the way around. Eric, Petey, and Shane were all ready to go over it, but we waited an hour until the heels were finished with their pre-tapes, then all sat down. And see, here's another thing. Because the thing that Shitstain could control it almost in their entirety of all the things that went into the show were the pre-tape interviews, because he could be in the back with the talent. He could produce them. He could make sure they're exactly like he wanted them. And they took for fucking ever. And he even had a rule one time. The pre-tapes, when we were formatting the show, well, I say it was formatted by the time I got it. But I believe Mike Tenay was doing the timing. When the show was timed, you had to leave a minute and a half minimum for each backstage pre-tape. Even if they only had to say, hi, how are you? See you later. Minute and a half. When we would do them in less to save time for live content, for more matches, for fucking live promos in the ring in front of the people, he would get mad. Well, they didn't say everything. Nobody gave a shit whether they said all that shit or not. They got the point across. We got back out to live. So he made a stink about it. It was hanging up crews that were in the back, not only a crew in the promo room, but if something needed to be on location, he had an E&G crew hanging around. And he's producing them all himself, so he's got to run from one thing to another, and there's nothing but pre-tapes the whole goddamn show. Because he wanted to hear everybody speak his fucking stupid words, and that's why it took so long, because nobody could deliver that shit. Didn't make any sense. So we're all waiting to go over the shit that's going to take place in the ring in front of the people for 10 or 15 minutes while these minute and a half pre-tapes are going on. Anyway, then we all sat down. I gave him the outline of the match exactly as written. Savio sat in and witnessed. I asked if there were any questions, and everyone said they had it. Booker's only change here was I wanted Shane to hit Steiner once on his comeback, but Booker said he wanted to keep the quote-unquote big comeback on him. Once they got in the ring, it was a different match. The heels ate Eric up for 3 minutes, then Booker beat him and never let Petey in the ring. And this was an elimination match, apparently, you'll find out they keep going. But yeah, just boom, 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 bam. Then they ate Petey up. And once they'd done that, then they started giving him hope spots, which was exactly backward from the way it was laid out. Then Booker beat Petey too, instead of Steiner as it was supposed to be. And Booker said afterwards he forgot because they were on a roll. The match was boring and crappy, and Jeff was pretty much disgusted.
How often?
I remember him walking around shaking his head a lot.
How often do you ever hear that? Like, we forgot what we were doing because we were on a roll, or some variation of that. Is that a common excuse?
Not very. No, I think that's the first time I'd ever heard it. I've heard, yeah, we were on a roll. We really kept it going, but not, we were on such a roll, I've forgotten, did the wrong fucking thing. Then Shane's big comeback, because they wanted the referee. They'd been milking this for where this is finally when Shane goes crazy and makes a comeback and reveals that he can take care of himself and he's going to transition to a wrestler or whatever. Shane's big comeback consisted of 4 punches Booker staggered for before Steiner stopped him, which was what I had predicted to Savio after hearing what Booker had said earlier. Afterward, Eric and Petey were depressed about their showing and the match in general, and complained that Booker would not go over anything beforehand, which is his usual MO, as he just calls it in the ring to make it quote unquote real. And that's what he'd do, because again, as I've said, a lot of the guys would try to dig in and overcome the obstacles of having an idiot in charge of creative and a fucking bigger moron owning the company. And a lot of guys would try hard and then zone out. But some people were sometimes there because they got to go to the amusement park until about 3:00 in the afternoon, and they lived very close by. Anyway, I told them not to worry, as Jeff knew it wasn't their fault, and I tried to come up with some suggestions for what they could have done to make it better without cooperation from their opponents, but I couldn't. It was clear Booker, and to somewhat lesser extent Steiner, did not see these guys as belonging in the ring with them or worthy of selling for, and so just ate them up and did just enough of what they were supposed to do to get by without being yelled at. And truthfully, there's a point of legitimacy to that too, because it's Booker T and Scott Steiner against Petey Williams and Eric Young. Yeah. And but anyway, I said, Terry, let me know if this is the kind of thing you need going forward, or if you need anything else. I'll talk to you soon about my contract. And he wrote back, said, this is exactly what we want. Well done. Please contact me anytime regarding your contract, which I then renewed, and I think at a raise within the next week or so. And then that's why in the following into the September season, and I was doing a lot more work, I was thinking about another raise when we talked in January, which we didn't end up talking in January. But that was, Jeff was there, but it was starting to be an issue. The younger guys, the older guys, who's laying on their ass, who's really contributing. You know, there was the Kurt Angle couldn't have worked any harder if he was a goddamn ditch digger, and Mick Foley overworked himself for the physical condition he was in while he was there. A lot of the other guys sometimes didn't want to do that. And so Jeff was trying to keep control of everybody. And at the same time, you know, as we've said, the creative was just, it was a bone of contention with everybody. Both the television production crew trying to shoot this shit and trying to be in 18 places at once, because, you know, the famous request, it wasn't in TNA, it was in WCW, but a number of the crew in TNA were there in WCW when Shitstain called them up on Friday and said, yeah, in Boston on Monday, we need a Partridge Family bus. Like there's a store for those things. So every time that when Shark Boy needed to live in a fish tank, there would be actually people that were being paid to produce this television program in some respect or another, that instead of concentrating on shit that needed to be done, they were out trying to build a goddamn apartment that looked like the inside of a fish tank because somebody thought they were goddamn Orson Welles.